What's up, people? It's your boy Poetics. I'm going to show you this beat I made that was inspired by listening to a lot of Doom recently. I've been going through listening to Food. I've been listening to a lot of Mad Villainy, so I wanted to make a beat and kind of cover the same vibe as MADLIB and Doom. And I feel like I did that pretty good with this beat, so I'm going to go ahead and show it to you guys. And show some of the little techniques I did. Some stuff that I've recognized that MADLIB does in a lot of his beats. So the first thing I did was I found this cool little guitar sample from Splice. So I'll show you how it originally sounded. So it originally sounded like this. I felt like that was a little more like R&B than I was looking for. So I went ahead and pitched it up, and then I sped it up. It was originally at 140, so I bumped it up to 158. I just wanted to get a little more bounce to it, and then I chopped it up like this. So it's not like perfectly chopped up, but that's kind of what MADLIB does, is things don't really sync up perfectly in a lot of his beats. Sometimes same with the stuff Doom produces for himself, they'll be very choppy, and sometimes it feels like you're like, how the heck are the drums going to drop on this? And then they drop and it all comes together. You'll recognize that a lot in MADLIB beats, is like if you listen to just the way he chops up the sample, you're like, you literally couldn't make a beat of this. And then the whole beat comes in as super fire. So yeah, I went ahead and took that sample, and then another little technique I did was at a later part in the beat. At the beginning of the verse, I kind of chopped it up. So tiny little ear candy, but it mixes it up just enough to for the listener, so that when the verse comes in and we take out the drums and then bring them back in, it's like there's something a little bit different happening that catches you off guard. And then this is the snare I picked. So very basic sounding, but very real sounding snare. I just did a little bit of sausage fattener, 20%, 6% color, just to bump it up. Another technique I did is with the sample, I wanted to get some more of the bass out of it, so I didn't have to make a separate bass. So I just did a bump of the low end, and then like a tiny bit right there in the middle of the mid, just to get that big rumbly sounding bass out of it. So that's why the bass sounds as good as it does. And then another technique you'll hear MADLIB do a lot is chopping up of, instead of like just taking one hi-hat and just playing it over and over, he'll take a sample of hi-hats like actually being played, but he'll chop it up. So that's what I did on this, was I took this hi-hat loop, and it was just that short little part, and I chopped it up. So what this does is you get a little bit of that very realistic sounding hi-hat, and then you also get like the real sound of someone playing, but it's still like, it's not perfect, it's not perfectly on beat, it's not perfectly synced like a two-step hi-hat. And then we have the little bit of switch up, it's almost kind of like a shaker, But when you're chopping it up in this way, where you're having it randomly like end and different patterns for it, it's very similar to a real MPC sampling machine. So yeah, together it sounds like this. So you can hear some of that real bounce to it. It's very, very MF Doom vibes. Then we got this kick drum. So what we're doing here to get the similar thing where we're trying to get a very real sounding kick, we have the regular kick, and then we have what's called a pre-kick. So that's just like if you're playing two notes in succession on a kick drum, sometimes the first one or one of the notes won't be like perfectly as loud as the other one. So we got that in there, and it adds a dope little bounce to the kick drum. A lot of people won't even recognize that. They'll just hear the main note, or if they hear it, they'll think it's just two notes. But yeah, so having two different kicks in there adds some good variety. Then we don't have any 808 in there, so I'll go ahead and remove that. And then I got an open hi-hat. So same thing once again, a very real sounding open hi-hat. One technique I did is I put the root note at C5, so it's actually being played way lower than the original. So once again, just makes it sound even more like a sample. And then we got these rides. I did a similar thing to what I did with the hi-hat, where I took this ride sample and chopped it up. So it's the same thing. It's like some ear candy. It's not perfectly in sync, so it's not like perfectly on beat. But when it all comes together, it sounds like this. And then then when it leaves, it's almost like you're like missing it and waiting for it to come back in. And then we have percussion. I went ahead and just added some toms. Normally I would do some more variation in the toms, but I just felt like with how much was already in the beat, I didn't need to overdo it, and it would just sound very natural and real sounding. So yeah, that's basically all of it. So then for structure, what we did is it's just that at the beginning, and then right when the verse starts, we have the hi-hat and snare come out, and then the snare comes back in for the third bar, but then there's no hi-hat, so it's just some good variety in there. And then for the second part of the verse, we have no hi-hat, but we have a lot more of the ride. So that's something we're doing, is the combination of hi-hats and rides to add some changes to the beat. Since if we didn't do that, the sample would get very monotonous, but because there's so much else happening percussion-wise, it adds a lot of variety to the beat without really adding much. And then we have this break right here. You can hear 4 bars of no drums or anything, just the sample. And then that makes it so when all the drums come back in on the chorus, it just hits so hard because you've had that long build up. And the sample's got a lot of notes and stuff in it anyway, so it really doesn't need anything else. Yeah, so that's kind of my take on it. MF Doom, MADLIB, Mad Villain type beat. So I hope you liked it. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe when you're wanting to hear more. I'm going to start doing a lot more tutorials on here because they're performing relatively well and people tell me they like them. So we'll keep it going. Appreciate you. Have a good one.